Today's show sponsor is Sienna Dawn Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Dawn Media is more than just a marketing agency. They're your partners in progress. Their mission is simple: to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do: create. Sienna Dawn Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. So if you're ready to set sail toward new horizons, let Sienna Dawn Media chart the course and steer your business toward success. Visit siennadawnmedia.com.
Blah, 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 blah.
Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo, and I'm also a mother of a daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. I know the challenges you face every day. Whether you have just learned the difficult news of your baby's cleft lip or palate, you're in the midst of pre-op or post-op, or you're an OG cleft mom, this podcast is for you. In a weekly conversation, we will talk about everything from feeding and speech therapy to surgery and school. We'll share tips from guest experts and advocates, and even share a little joy in the process. You can listen to Our Forever Smiles wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Hi, Cleft Mamas. This episode will be a little bit different today. Welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Of course, I am your host, Laura Arroyo, and I wanted to do something a little bit different around the holidays. And I know that sometimes it can be really hard for mamas, especially with mental health challenges and postpartum. Also learning difficult news about maybe your child's diagnosis, or maybe you're going through the NAM process right now and it's really hard just having guests around and just having people ask you tons of questions, or just being busy pumping, or just dealing with all of the things that comes with being a mama. So I brought back a special guest from one of our old episodes, Alexis Garcia. I am sure that you all know her from Instagram. At this point, I talk to her all day long. She's my El Paso bestie. So I am so thrilled to have her back on today. We will be recording this episode in a slightly different format than what we're used to, but I hope that you all enjoy. And happy holidays.
Hi, Laura. You're right. I do feel like your bestie at this point. So a lot has happened since last time that we spoke. I believe the last time we spoke, Amber had just recently gotten her lip repair done. So since then, she ended up getting her palate repair along with her ear tubes at the same time. And honestly, I expected the absolute worst, and it went so much better than the lip repair. I was prepared for so much pain and misery and no sleep, but she surprised me. You know what? I guess I thought palate repair was going to be a lot worse just because it's inside of her mouth, to where like the lip didn't affect the inside. I imagined palate repair like a severe sore throat. And I cannot stand having a sore throat, and even swallowing like cold water hurts. So that's what I was imagining. And no, I guess I have spoken to other moms about it, and they explained to me that I guess we have more nerve endings in our lip. So if you touch it, it hurts a little bit more. But then when you touch the palate, it hurts less, more painful. Yes. Like paper cuts compared to scraping your knee. For some reason, that paper cut just does it.
What do you think kept you going during this time, during palate repair, a time that's really hard for families?
I had been praying over her so hard. And the night before palate repair, I was listening to a teaching, and the guy who was giving the teaching, he mentioned, and I was watching like a rebroadcast. So this was recorded a while back. And he said, you know what? There's somebody praying for a cleft palate. I still get chills talking about it. And I genuinely thought I was going to go into the hospital and they were going to send her back, because that has been my prayer from day one. You know what, God, you can do anything. Fix this, please. That wasn't the case. But as soon as she came out, she cried a little bit, but she signed for her juice. We were fantastic. And everybody was so surprised with how she handled it. And all I could say was, it was God. And through our whole journey since pregnancy, that's the only thing that I can say is thank you to God, because he performed actual miracles on Ember.
Thank you for sharing that update on Ember. I remember recently you posted something on your Instagram about a mother that you saw struggling, and you wanted to get responses from your followers on Instagram. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you saw? And I think that this discussion will lead us into how postpartum affects mothers differently and how people experience postpartum. Either they don't experience anything, or they may have depression, or they may have anxiety, or they may have rage or psychosis. And I think that it's really important to outline or to detail how this can show up in the world.
Yeah. You know what? Here in El Paso, it was maybe about 50 degrees. So it was really cold and windy. And when I was at Walmart, I saw a mom that was only wearing a tank top and some like comfy little lounge pants. And her baby was in the cart with a little blanket in only a diaper, no socks, no shirt, nothing.
Hello, everyone. Sorry to interrupt, but I need a little bit of help. If you're listening to this on the Apple Podcast app or YouTube, you may see a follow plus sign or subscribe button. If you are able to, it would mean the world to me if you could follow or subscribe. That's the best way to support this show. If you subscribe, I'm able to show it to potential guests or different brands. It helps to grow the show and reach more communities to continue building awareness about the cleft lip and palate journey on a global scale. Thank you so, so much. Back to the conversation.
So I posted on Instagram and I asked some moms what they would do in that situation. And I reiterated the fact that I wanted to be careful with what I said, because I know a lot of moms deal with postpartum depression and rage. And sometimes what might be the bare minimum to us, which is getting dressed, putting on a sweater, is extremely difficult for others. After I asked the poll, now I know how to address it. But at the time, I just didn't want to step on anybody's toes. And when I looked in her cart, it seemed like she might have been starting over. So obviously I do not know the situation at all. But I did see some basic like bottles and socks. And that's all I saw. But it did look like she was starting from nothing. I did get some input, and some people were like, you should have offered to buy the baby a jacket. And which I agree to some extent. But like I said, she did have some items for the baby. And she was buying him or her breakfast at McDonald's. I didn't really know where to step in, but I did have a good friend. Her name is Mackenzie. And she said something which I think would be the best way to approach it. I'm going to go ahead and read it. She said, I would say something like, hi, mama, can I do anything to support you today? Just to start a conversation. And then her response to that question would show you a lot. If she's receptive, you could get into the baby not wearing clothes and it being cold, or her not wearing clothes and it being cold. If she responds really defensive, then I would just say, okay, and walk away.
So we know that you have 3 beautiful children. Did you ever experience any postpartum depression or rage, psychosis, or anxiety?
After my first daughter, I could not relate to anybody that had experienced postpartum depression or rage. But I feel like the more kids I had, the worse it got. With my son, I did have that. And I think it was just because it was a lot for me to juggle, and I was a single mom at the time as well. So I think that kind of postpartum depression comes with being a single mom and doing it all on your own. And then when I had my daughter Ember, it shot up. I feel like I never really dealt with maybe the postpartum depression and regular depression that I had after having my son, and dealing with Ember, dealing with court on top of that, and dealing with a cleft diagnosis shot it through the roof. So yes, I did experience the depression part. I don't think I experienced the rage part, but I do know that's really common.
Before I had children, I don't know how I handled situations with other moms, but I don't think that I had a lot of grace or as much grace as I feel like I needed for myself. So I kick myself a little bit for the way that I was not there for my friends, or I just feel like I could have done more or made them feel more supported. At the end of the day, it's not really my responsibility, but just knowing everything that I had gone through, I just wish I had a little bit more consideration for my friends and just handled them a little bit differently. Because now I understand what it's like to be a mom and what it's like to go through postpartum feelings.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of layers to that. One, because people don't just come out and openly say, hey, I'm struggling. This is where I need you. And at the same time, you haven't experienced it firsthand. So you cannot understand their feelings completely. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself. Like you said, it's definitely not your responsibility. But after you become a mom, I feel like it changes you in so many ways, and you understand the world a little bit more. You understand your own parents a little bit more. So I think you should also have a little bit of grace with yourself when it comes to that.
I don't know if I experienced a ton of postpartum depression with Giselle. I experienced more postpartum anxiety. I was having a lot of insomnia, not just because obviously newborns wake up every 2 to 3 hours, right? It was also just because I wasn't sleeping at night. I was sleeping, but I was lightly sleeping. And most of the time, I was just up looking at her. And that just made things 10 times harder.
Well, not only that, it's like you have to wash bottles. You have to also continue living your life. Like life doesn't just stop when you have a baby. You have laundry to wash. You have to shower. So it's hard to squeeze in everything that you need to do in 2-hour increments.
Yeah.
I think it does last a good 2 years. And then the hard just gets different. You know, it's like newborn stage is hard. Toddler stage is hard. The stage that I'm in with my kids joining a million sports is hard. I just don't think we get a quote unquote break after we birth these children.
Not just with Ember, but with each of your postpartum experiences, what do you think has been the thing that has gotten you to the other side? Another thing I want to point out before you answer that is your son is 7. So there's a gap. Of course, you're going to experience things a little bit differently. You're not the same person.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Honestly, I did not want to have any more kids after having the boy and the girl, mainly because of postpartum depression. One of the things that I think helped me get out of that was kind of just accepting where I was mentally, physically, emotionally, just kind of, I guess, reflecting on that and realizing that this is just a stage. I'm gonna get over it. This is just a hard part of my life right now. It's not gonna last forever. And also having the support of my mom, really. My mom, if I ever needed anything, she would hold the baby while I ate. Little things like that that truly do make a difference. Or because I was living with her for some time after I had my son, she would watch him while I showered. So just those little things make the biggest difference, because it just, I guess it kind of gives you some space to just feel like you, even if it's 20 minutes.
So you recently shared a TikTok video with me. It is called 17 Diapers. And so I would love for you to explain the video a little bit What is 17 diapers?
So the 17 diapers, I guess the original TikTok was about a mom newly postpartum, and she was saying, come around the house and pick up the diapers with me, or something along those lines. And there was 17 diapers around her house. Half of the moms were mom shaming her, and half of them were rooting for her. I personally was rooting for her. And that's when this trend kind of started. And it said to share your 17 diapers. One of the things that I had mentioned to you for my example was my 17 diapers was hysterically crying in the shower for a year. So in place of picking up the 17 diapers, that's what I was doing. When I looked up the trend, I could not help but cry for a lot of these moms because I related to so many of them. And I'm getting choked up literally just talking about it. Another example for me was my 17 diapers was crying when I was alone so that my parents and my kids wouldn't know how much I was struggling, because I felt like I needed to hide a little bit. I didn't want people to know I was struggling as much as I was. Another thing that I do want to point out is that, like I said before, somebody's bare minimum is a lot harder for other people. We all have a rock bottom that looks completely different than the next mom, and some people don't make it out of their 17 diapers phase, because I feel like a lot of moms forget, or they erase that part of their life, right after they have a baby, especially if your baby was dealing with the cleft diagnosis, or you're dealing with the depression, or any other kind of diagnosis. I feel like our brains are I guess they're working hard to protect us. So, my memory from when I had Ember, I remember some parts, but I cannot remember other parts for the life of me, like you said. And I feel like that both of our 17 diapers is not remembering the beginning stages because we were so worried about what the future held.
Did you deal with any mom guilt before you had Ember? I know it's a common thing that happens among all moms. It's not necessarily unique to the cleft experience. And also, the things that I have mom guilt over with Giselle are often cleft related, but sometimes they are not cleft related. So, did you experience that with your other kids as well as Ember?
So for the first two, I didn't really experience mom guilt until recently. When you start comparing your kids to other kids, what other kids have, what your kids don't have, and stuff like that. So from a single mom perspective, I did experience mom guilt, but not until a little bit later. With Ember, I started experiencing mom guilt as soon as I found out I was pregnant with her, to be honest, because I knew I would be bringing her into a broken home. And also, when I got her cleft diagnosis, I still to this day feel like it's a little bit of my fault. I was under a lot of stress, so I don't know if that could have affected anything when she was being formed. And I don't know, like I said, I feel like sometimes you just can't help but feel like a lot of the stuff is your fault as a mom. And with Ember's situation in particular, I feel like I'm going to have to explain some things to her later on about her with her biological father. And that's where I carry a lot of the mom guilt as well.
Do you consider yourself a blended family?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're blended. I have a boyfriend with a 13-year-old daughter. And then we have 2 kids together. And then Ember she has a different biological dad.
So you weren't with your boyfriend when we recorded previously. And so you rekindled a romance? Did it ever stop?
Yeah, it definitely stopped. We absolutely hated each other. But I think when I was having Ember, I think when I had to explain the situation to both him and the kids, I think everybody just kind of had to step it up. And that's kind of and he saw that I was alone. He saw that I had this baby with this NAM device. And that's where he kind of started to step in, and I told him the whole situation, and he has taken on the role of dad for my Emmy.
Just in thinking back during that time that you were feeling stressed out about Ember's diagnosis, or just trying to convince yourself that it wasn't your fault, or that there was nothing that you could do, or you were trying your best. What do you remember during that time?
On the convincing myself that it's not my fault topic, I wrote something and I wish I would have dated it. This was back when I was doing all the NAM and stuff with my Ember. This is called In the Strength of It All. Looking at my daughter, I'm so full of so many emotions. She's beautiful, perfect in every way, but this is something I wish I could simply heal. I love her so deeply and would switch places with her if I ever got the chance. I feel sorry for her. I feel guilty. One of the first things I was told when I got her cleft diagnosis was, "This just happens. It isn't your fault." But sometimes my mind can't help but wander into a place where it is. I get told so often, "You're so strong. She's so strong. You've got this." But what if somewhere in the strength of it all, we are soft? I've cried in almost every shower for weeks, and I cry in any moment I get alone. I cried when she was born. I cried when she got her NAM, making bands, trying to pump. I cried when she got rashes from her NAM tapes. To and from appointments. Before surgery, during and after seeing her new smile. We've cried endless rivers together. I don't feel strong most days, and I don't think she does either. At this moment, what if it's just called surviving? Although strength is meant to be a compliment, I wish people would see our reality. Sometimes we're tired. We're tired of being strong. What if somewhere in the strength of it all, we wanted to be soft, but strength was our only choice?
Wow, Alexis, that was beautiful. And I feel like it is really powerful for other mothers to hear and to have their feelings validated through your experience. In going through all of this, I'm curious about how your other children reacted to your life, your cleft journey with Ember. I know that boys are very attached to their mothers, and he was the baby for a really long time. How was his experience in all of this? How did your son react to the new baby, Ember?
I think it was really hard for my son to realize that he wasn't the baby anymore. But at the same time, he was like 5 or 6 this time. So he really was not a baby anymore. And then with Ember coming along, she is 100% Velcro baby. She's getting a little bit better now that she's going to school, but it was definitely an adjustment for everybody having a new baby. And then with the baby that was born with a cleft diagnosis, it was just a whirlwind of emotions for everybody. So I give them a lot of props. Like, as I've mentioned on my Instagram before, I can cry and cry about how brave they've been and how much they've stepped it up.
Was there any mom guilt that came along with that? I've noticed that a lot of mothers who receive a cleft diagnosis often worry about their older children and just feel guilty about not being able to give them as much attention as they would like to, especially given that a child with a cleft has a lot of appointments. They have a lot of different types of needs. And so how did you experience this with your other 2 children?
It was really, really hard. But I think the fact that I knew about Ember's diagnosis at about 21 weeks, I was able to kind of prep them for the year ahead and also enjoy our alone time a little bit more. And I would take them like on dates and explain to them like, "Hey, I really want to spend time with you guys. And like, let's go to the movies and let's go to eat before this baby comes, because I know that this year is going to be hard." So just being really like open with them, I think helped. And even now, I don't know if you saw my post the other day, we just had a day away from Ember and we bonded and we shopped, and just kind of keeping that relationship with the older kids and letting them know like, "Hey, like I'm here for you still. I know our year and a half, 2 years, has been really, really rough. And I've had to focus on Ember, but this is why, just kind of like explaining things to them at their level and then getting them to really grasp and understand, like, hey, this is what's needed and this is what we're going to do. And this is how I can still support you and how you guys can also support me while we go through this big change. Just keeping the relationship, like you said, tight with my older kid. Challenging, but doable.
Do they have a lot of questions
About Ember? Yeah, they do. Kind of. At first they did. And now I think they see her like a quote unquote normal baby. So the questions have definitely lessened, but just like I said, just staying open and honest with them. I did feel a lot of guilt at first, but that's where my mom would step in and, hey, I'm going to take the older kids for ice cream and let's have the older kids sleep over. That way we can kind of give them some different experiences and it's not always with mom and baby.
So I feel like we've talked a lot about our experiences with postpartum and some mom guilt. And so what I wanted to offer our audience today are some tips and things that we can do, or the things that works for us, especially during the holiday season that is coming up, and also just anyone that is having a baby right now during the holidays. Maybe you're listening to this just trying to pass time, or you're pumping, or you're making bands for the NAM. People are in all different stages. But I feel like for some reason, the cold weather coming in and the holidays kind of bring up different feelings for everyone. I know it does for me. Some people experience seasonal depression. What are some things that you've learned that have kept you sane during this time? And also just in general, in postpartum, what are some things that really helped you?
Well, first off, I want to say that Walmart Plus is the way to go 100%. It's a game changer. That has helped me from pregnancy to this day because I don't have to worry about going to the store and grabbing everything I need and also buying unnecessary items. I order what I need for dinner or for the baby or for the kids and their school projects or whatever, and it comes straight to my door. This is not an ad, obviously. I'm not cool enough to make an ad, but it's affordable even for a single mom like me. It's $100 a year. You get free shipping on your groceries and whatever you need delivered to your door. And then it's also $50 a year if you get government assistance, like if your kids are on Medicaid, you have SNAP, or I don't really know the other government assistance programs that they have. But if you have any of those, you get it for $50 a year. And $50 to save my mental health is worth it. Like I said, I pay the $100 a year and I could not be more grateful for Walmart Plus because it has saved me in so many ways. That alone is my number one tip for moms or anybody, honestly. The second thing that I was going to say is that if you're not happy breastfeeding, don't feel guilty about it at all. I went through that and I feel like I put so much pressure on myself because I breastfed my other two kids for 14 months each. And it was such a different experience having to pump and wash the bottles and change the NAM and go to the appointments and all of that. I wish somebody would have just told me, if you're not happy doing it, just stop doing it. Because the second that I switched her over to formula, I felt like a new person. I started to feel like myself again. And I started to feel like I could be more productive with my life. And I had more time for me. I wasn't just this milk making machine that had to feed a baby, change a baby, work, make dinner, and all of the things that come with everyday life. So if you love it, great, all the power to you. And if you don't, it's okay to say no. I'm making this decision for myself. And like I said, I just wish somebody would have told me that. The last one that I was going to say is having a nighttime routine. It took me a while to figure this out, but even with my first two, I had no idea what I was doing, honestly, until about 2 years in. And that's when we started our nighttime routine. And that has saved my life, literally, These are all tips that have saved my life, and I'm not saying that lightly. Doing the nighttime routine and having myself shower at night and cleaning at night and having my alone time, it really did it for me, because I feel like, again, after the chaos of the day, I was able to take my alone time and really reflect on my day and who I am as a person and what I like. And just waking up in the morning to a clean house also saved me. Me being able to do everything at night while everybody was asleep, having them asleep at a decent bedtime so that I wasn't stressed while doing all of these things.
Yes, I completely agree. I think it took me a while to even establish a nighttime routine with Giselle, but now it's much needed for me to have a reset. I enjoy taking a shower and just the opportunity to doom scroll, which is not the healthiest thing to do, but I also have gotten back into my skincare routine. I'm able to spend time with my fiance and just different things that I really feel like are really helpful and allow me to reset and to think about the day. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but what do you think friends and family can do to help you during this time?
I would honestly say, I think you mentioned a meal train, and I'm kind of new to finding out about those things, but gift cards to get food is very helpful, or people just picking up a pizza and delivering it to your house. So helpful. We had that done. I don't know if it was after my daughter's surgery or postpartum, but having family to provide meals for you is wonderful.
Yeah.
And then also, I think just checking in is the biggest thing that I could think of, is just checking in on the mom. Because like you said, we're quick to check in on that baby, but a lot of times the moms get a little bit neglected. So checking in on the moms makes a lot of the difference. I know my dad is always calling me, I know your kids are great, but how are you? How are you doing? So I think just being able to talk about how I'm doing helps a lot. Obviously, coffee gift cards are life-changing. Yeah, I think coffee, meals, and checking in on mama help. Keeping visitors also away sounds a little like conflicting with what I'm saying, like be there for the mom, but also stay away. I don't think any mom wants to clean up for people to come over unless you have a really, really tight-knit relationship. I don't think that's the option. I think sending gift cards, money, DoorDash is probably the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah. The postpartum period can be very hectic. And so, as we've shared on this episode, allowing the mom to know that you see them and that you're there to support them if you need to is really valuable. You can show up without physically showing up. That is in providing a meal, ordering a pizza, doing gift cards. You can also, if they have older kids, offer to do something with the older kids so that they can have alone time with the baby. Obviously, people are very protective over their children, so a lot of times people don't want you coming over because of germs and all of the things, but you may be able to help with the other children. You can take something off of their plate, and I think that that's the main thing. Also, if you're close enough or your family, having someone to hold the baby while you shower is such a big thing. It's so hard to eat and to shower. Those are two things that I know I really took for granted. I didn't even realize that I was hungry a lot because I couldn't eat with Giselle. And then by the time I was settled down to eat, my food was cold. I want to thank you today, Alexis, for sharing your story here on the Our Forever Smiles podcast. And also, we really strongly hope that if you are having or experiencing postpartum depression, rage, psychosis, or anxiety, or if you feel like you need help, please seek help. We will attach some resources in the show notes here. We strongly encourage you to talk to your medical professionals during your postpartum period and express any concerns that you may have regarding your mental health. It is not lost on us that people experience very strong emotions during this time. We laugh, but we also just want to make sure that you all are taking care of yourselves, that you give yourself the space to be emotional and be sad and feel the feelings that you need to feel, because we again understand that this is a very vulnerable time. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it for this episode. I hope that you've gained some valuable tips here. Hopefully you have had your feelings validated. And I just want to tell you again, Alexis, thank you for sharing your story and sharing your experiences with us here today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little piece of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.